feel like the
So chapter 5 was like talking about how within himself he had like shadow, and that was like the parts of him that he didn't like, so we tried to push them down deep into himself. We like connected that with like the soldiers like breaking points, kind of like they pushed them down so far, and then it would just explode out.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Like with his friend Mike, but also then there, he kind of connected it to how everyone has that shadow, and it's not just in combat. He called it the gook inside.
Yeah.
And anyway, so like one of the examples was the kids, which it was page 86, the kids who were raised with absolutely no violence, and then they were found torturing insects, which is a little bit scary.
Yeah,
but what it brings up is you can't press it down. You have to, it has to be released somehow, otherwise, like you said, people are just going to break and it's going to explode out.
Or not even like let out, but you have to acknowledge like that it's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like restrict yourself and others from realizing that they have this like dark side of them.
Yep. Yeah.
And when he was talking about like his like shadow and stuff, he was saying how like to feel more alive that he like got into drugs and drinking and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And, like a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, that was sad. And then like he also said he like it was the business trip that they were talking about, and how those like he was talking with his business associates who he respected a lot, but they were just numb. That was it. They were just talking about this, and that makes life so much less interesting and fulfilling. And then like one of the other things was that then he looked over at the business meeting and all of the wives, who I don't even know if they all spoke the same language, but they were animated and talking and caring about each other, and he let the shadow kind of take over him in a way, like subconsciously, I think. And that shadow, like, it took away the emotion in him.
Like on page 87, it's like quoting him, if you go to war singing onward, Christian soldiers, you're going to raise the devil. Like if you believe that war is all good and Christian and holy, you're gonna end up suppressing your shadow and that kind of stuff. And also like in chapter 5, he talked about like the different kinds of atrocities. Like white heat, where logic reigns supreme with no feeling or empathy, so that's like that numb. And then red heat, opposite of white and emotion. Usually rage rules the exclusion of all logic and emotion.
Yeah, and then that fallen standard one, the one where they they don't hold themselves to the same thing. It's just kind of blah. But
it's kind of like when they break.
Like the Mike guy when he hung that.
Yeah,
He
that
kept
was
him,
very-
beat him to a pulpit and hung him up from a flagpole.
red heat.
And then I was like, no, and then like, and he was still living. I was like, oh my gosh. I don't know how
I thought he was dead at
Me
first, and
too.
then I was like, oh, and then they got him down. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's terrifying. And just like the things that take over you when you don't want them to, the emotions just flow out. Like the reason he did that, and I'm not saying this gives any reason why he should have, or that it's, anyways, I can't think of the word, but that it's because of the kid was carrying around landmines to plant, and just throughout, like I think it was like the week or something, this Mike guy, his friends had been blown up by landmines, and just that's terrifying and heart crushing. Exactly, and so he pushed all of it onto the one kid.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting because the author said that he wanted to leave parts of the real story out, and he was like lying to himself, and he kept writing like fictional endings over and over again
Oh yeah, and
to like make them seem better.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
When they killed all of the people that even like surrendered. They
Yeah.
just killed them anyway.
Yeah, the no quarter.
Yeah.
No mercy.
I kind of liked the lying chapter. Like
Same.
it was really
To chapter
interesting.
6.
Yeah, how they lied about like the body count. Like that's all the people cared about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's very like I don't know, it's like publicized more. Like that's all they cared about.
That really got you, because you were thinking, because you would probably be the one sitting in the kitchen reading the morning newspaper and seeing the kill counts.
Yeah.
Okay, but then he brought you to where the soldier's perspective of, yeah, we got one or two, but best friends are dead.
Yeah.
And it's,
That doesn't matter to us.
exactly, the kill count doesn't matter to the soldiers. It's what,
Makes them look better.
exactly, and it's just, it's awful, truly.
Or like how it was like going up the ladder, they're like, yeah, we got
Mhm.
one kill, and it's like, then someone else said they got someone, so 1 kill, 1 probable, and then it went up to the next one, they're like, well, if it's a probable, then they're definitely dead. But if you have a kill, you probably have a probable, so 2 kills, 2 probable.
Yeah,
It like kept going up like that.
just the mind tricks of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really weird too, because like they were cutting off the ears and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they stopped it, so you'd think there'd be some way to even notice a little bit.
Mhm.
To have like that cocky personality.
I didn't like the ears part.
Yeah.
Like that's freaky out.
Mm-hmm.
They like wear them at like necklaces. I don't like that.
Traded them for stuff.
Yeah.
And that's
Awful.
But I also like the line part, like when they're talking about P-Dog, right? Because he was like the commanding, like, or the officer, like the police officer kind of, like, per se. And it's like, he was talking about like, like the consequences of it. So smoking on page 121, smoking dope in those days meant mandatory court martial and dishonorable discharge. Any kid with dishonorable discharge would lose GI benefits. Typically meant losing any chances of further education. And then, so they wouldn't be able to get a decent job. And then it was color that kid black, and you just shut him out of normal society for life. And when he went over there, then P-Dog was black, and he was the one with it. And he lied to cover it up or whatever. And everyone lied with him.
yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool.
It was kind of cool, but then, like, you'd think P-Dog would be grateful for that, but just
Oh, yeah.
he was, like, really cocky about it, and that
Yeah.
bothered me a lot. But, like, I respect him for what he'd done, but then at least be grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also said he was like angry because he was like stupid enough to keep one going in his
Yeah,
pocket
and
or
then
whatever.
because he like cockily like pulled
With
his
his
pocket out and it fell out. Like, no, I can use this tobacco. Like, oh my gosh.
I think, like, that he wasn't necessarily cocky about it, I think he wanted an out, and he, like,
Yeah.
he knew what he was getting into, and I think the fact that he didn't get out, and he knew that that meant that he was gonna be tied to the Marines forever, I think it kind of scared, like, that's a scary thing, you know, to have your whole life, like, tied to something. It's like, if you go into a marriage and then you wanna get a divorce, and someone's like, this doesn't look like your signature, you can't get a divorce, or something like that, like, it's like saying that he can't get out of something that he was, sorry, I just jumped on my foot. He was looking for an out, and it kind of seemed like he was upset because he had, like, when lying, it kind of got taken away from him.
I don't think he wanted to like, because he was going home in like 10 days
Or yeah,
when he got caught, like 17. And like if he would have been caught, they like pressed charges for marijuana. He would have, GI benefits would have been taken away. He would have been living on the streets for the rest of his life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think he didn't like thank Carl like for Sergeant Marlantes, however you say his name, because he didn't want people to realize that it was a lie. You know, like he didn't want to out himself further, kind of thing. I don't know. Or maybe he just wanted to forget about it.
Or maybe he just didn't care anymore because he'd seen so much. So it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was like part of like the numb coming into it or whatever.
It reminds me of on page 82 when he says, the main character talks about how he's a hard worker, but then Sarge, his shadow, visits him in his dreams, a lazy marijuana smoking deserter and lover. I wonder if that kind of added a marijuana smoker, like that kind of, maybe that's because of all the
Yeah.
like hate against that during this time period.
And that like connects with how he was a fat kid when he was little, and whenever he sees fat people, he instantly judges them
Yeah.
or whatever.
That's kind of cool because, like, he realized, he's like, I at first, like, saw them and I judged them, but then, like, he would look back at his life and then realize, like, that he was being too harsh, and I think that, like, a lot of people did that, like, on, it's, like, way at the beginning of chapter 5, I think? I don't know if I can find it, but there's a part where it says that people just assume that the Vietnam soldiers were
Oh
like,
I have that.
baby killers and just these awful people, but like nobody realizes that like they did something that not very many people could do. Like today, if a lot of us got sent to war and had to fight that battle, like not very many of us would make it out like mentally stable, let alone
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah, it was dope shooting, coke snuffing, baby killing mercenaries.
Yeah.
That was a good purpose.
That remind-
I'm sorry, go, you go.
Oh, okay. That just reminded me of those, a quote on page 109. It said it now seems obviously senseless and unnecessary cruel to have continued to shoot at them when they wanted to quit or retreat. Yet our job was to kill as many possible, retreating or not, during the quarter killing things. But like, people don't see that as their job. They're seeing it as them just being cruel to each other.
One part that really interested me was on page 83, where he says, where his alcoholic friend that he has to help get dressed. He said, we'd go to parties where everyone was too numb to talk and too high to care. I woke up one Sunday morning after one of these parties to answer the telephone. It was the airline pilot, husband of the woman lying next to me. He was calling to see if she was going to church with the kids. I tried to pretend I was a cool lover as I watched her get dressed to go, but I felt so sad and wrong inside.
That was wild.
When I read that, I kind of just like felt really shook
Yeah,
inside.
terrible. And I like how he's like, after that he said, that was the last time I made love to someone I didn't know. He's kind of slowly coming out of his I'm cool stage.
And like when he got back from his like business trips and he saw his son like sleeping with a picture of him and he said that he'd taken a ballpoint pen and stabbed out his face. I was like, you
That
really
made me
screwed
really
up
sad.
there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
really screwed
That
up.
was really sad. And then he talks about how because he was gone, like he knew that his child like resented him because he was gone. Then he goes and talks about how his mom resented his grandma because she was gone. And it was like the same thing with his great grandma, and how his mom worked so hard to break the cycle, but there he was doing the exact same thing.
But honestly, it didn't sound like he was working that hard to change it either. He's just like, this is just what happened. I am a neglectful parent. And that kind of made me, there are parts of this book where I really just don't like him at all. Like the part where he talks about how he wanted like the hero medal, so that's why he went to go get the person, not just because he wanted to save a human life. He just wanted the medal.
Yeah, I think like
Parts like
That-
annoy me.
it's kind of like selfish, but in a way that's honestly a lot of people in this world. I think when we're reading a book, especially about war heroes and stuff like that, we always expect them to have like the golden hearts, you know, like always doing something not for something in return, but just to do it out of the goodness of their heart. But in all reality, not very many people in the world do something
Yeah.
just because. And I mean, it's sad, but it's like,
I like that he's like real about it and he like understands that that was his motivation, but that doesn't make me like him anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of like the medals are your GPA and learning is the saving a person. It's a different, yeah, that's, you know, I think he's giving you a little insight into that world that we might not have.
Yeah, he even said on page 163 that it wasn't enough to do heroic things, he had to be recognized for it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like, he like told a lot of stories about other people during these like 4 chapters, like about Canada and about P-Dog and about
Oh
like,
yeah.
he was like talking about like 4 or 5 different guys, like it's not just himself.
Yeah, the Canada one movie said too.
yeah, I think it's kind of cool though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounded like something out of like something like movie that my dad would watch.
I feel like I've seen a movie.
I think I've seen a
Like
movie with
the
something.
big buff guy who sacrifices himself going through to shoot everybody. Sorry. That's okay, I've been shocking people all the way today.
But it feels like,
I had to input on Canada. I have so much respect for the kid, just cause like, so sorry, I call him kid. He's probably like grandpa age if he was alive now, but at the time he was a kid. Anyways, so I have so much respect because you'd also think like big dude, cocky and all of that, but then he's hurt, he's down, he could just stay and like get better, but they say we need someone here. He's up, ripping IVs out and going and helping them. He was, what was it, like the one-man charge up the hill, that's how they got it.
Yeah, that part made me really sad.
I like how it started with like a really like strong hero and how he got recognized, but at the end they were talking about that one kid who was like down and beaten, had like all of his like uniform torn up, and he was just asking Carl to have a rifle so he'd go fight.
And the, yeah,
And then the chopper got shot down, and then Carl and them went in to save everybody, and then the chopper people got medals and Carl got medals, but the kid never did.
yeah, I thought that was kind of cool, and like how he was saying like this kid was all like uppity and whatnot, but he stood up and like major firing, and he went and tried to do better for them, and that kind of makes me really happy. And I have to also comment on that, like, was it Nemi or Nemi
You know,
or him who just like, they had thought he was dead multiple times, and he's just like, psych, I'm here. And like, it was kind of funny because, right, he was the first one going up the hill. Nobody thought he'd made it, but he was the first one going up. But then also, Carl took that and he's like, we're all down, we're all bunkered, we're getting pulverized, we're not gonna make it. And so he's like, but you know what? We're gonna try. We're taking the lead. I have to get up there to stop them so that my soldiers don't get hurt. And I really liked how that was kind of, not a turning point, but it's how he got one of his medals, but the other medal was for the medal. This one was for his soldiers. He was going to make sure they were getting out. They were going to make it, they were going to take that hill. And that really found a place with me. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and then going back when you were talking about him, how like you had like a lot of like respect for him, whatever for what he did. And it was sad when they said he got like hit several times, and they're like, the Big C is dead. That was sad, yeah. That part, yeah. After all the things that he did.
I thought he was pretty cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, I bet you to like shoot this like pan out there, so he like grabs his gun and shoots like 2 little bursts at it, and shoots, and then just like gets up and walks. Doesn't say anything. I was like, wow, this guy's the real deal.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome, and how he was saying that, yeah, this was like a 2 or 3 person gun. This was not a 1 person. He's just sitting there and he's like, and it's done. Perfectly accurate and everything. And it's like, well then, that's
Well, he had,
when you
like-
definitely want on your side.
So he like stripped it down, and then he welded the handle to the top and made like custom like holders for it. Like this guy's serious.
It was pretty cool. And then, kind of going back to that fight, how he was Carl was very like heroic there, but then he told about that same fight in 2 different places. And in one of them, he was the hero, but in the one before that, it was on the atrocities. He was in his white heat phase up until they got the Vietnam to be kind of retreating, and then he got red heat. He was mad, and so he told the people who are coming around to go get them. And this Isle, that's what his name was. It was. Yeah, it was his like radio commander. They'd been through thick and thin. They'd been near death with each other multiple times, and like big brother. And I wanted to make Carl proud, and so he listened, and he got killed for it. And that hurt so bad.
Yeah, and also probably like brings them closer together. Like you said, that they're like always together, come close to dying. So like that just like brings their like love for each other stronger. The way he said he wanted to make him proud and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I think that would have been like a total breaking point for me.
Yeah.
I would have sat down, cried. What else? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's dry in here.
Oh, okay. So, I really like how you're saying like you didn't like him for like the choices he made like then. I'll agree with you, but like I feel like actually like when he said like the one when he was sleeping with that woman and he picked up his phone, I had to like go back in the book and like see what he looked like. So like what's this guy look like?
Wait, did y'all?
I did that too.
Like,
I
I
was
have
like,
pictures of
is he a nice looking guy?
And I was like, okay. That's weird. And I understand that he was like, obviously that's not a good choice, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like writing this book was a way for him to, because I feel like he's a good guy now.
Yeah.
You know, he has family, he has 5 kids or whatever, a wife, a steady job. He kind of switches from job to